Hi guys and welcome to Angling For You, and today you join me on another Lockdown Series 2 video, and today's the big one. You got really good feedback from the pros and cons of the box and side trays, so we're going to do the poles that I've owned, pros and cons. So the tested poles that I've done that I haven't owned, if you want that, we'll do that in another video, just let me know in the comments. But what we're going to do is, we're not going to go right back to when I started fishing, otherwise we'll be here for a day. But we'll go back to the just before we did angling info days, and that's around 6-7 years ago. So starting from the start, when I used to not fish as much as I'd like to because of hotels and getting out was nearly impossible, I then started to think I wanted to start to do some videos, and I'm not going to tell you where they were or what the channel is because they were pretty bad. No microphone, terrible camera, so we're not even going to go there. So let's just say the first pole I looked at coming out of that was a Daiwa SR1 11-meter pole. Now that pole itself is not a particularly expensive or very desirable pole. The SR range was just out at that time, and I thought Daiwa was a strong brand. Let's go with that to start off with. It was 11 meters, so it was easy to handle, and it was aimed at more margin fishing and what I'd come to get used to from the days of old. So a little bit of the pros, so we'll start with the pros. It had a lovely slip down finish on the actual pole itself, really easy to ship in and out, nice section, guiders, and for about 180 quid it came with three power kits and a cupping kit, and the main pole and a little bag and some tubes, so pretty decent for the price, and you know, it did exactly what it were aimed at, really. The main positives for me were its strength. It was super strong, and really did pull out some big fish up to, you know, high doubles. Definitely would recommend having it. I actually owned it twice. I sold it and then bought it again as just as a backup pole from a Whisker a few years back, and they're just solid poles. And my brother don't fish very often, and I used to have it, and he used to use it when he came to fish. And the other thing is that the sections are quite cheap. Daiwa have got one of the best, if not the best, call centres in regards to getting spares and after sales. Based in UK, obviously they're fantastic with that. So yeah, that's the pros. The cons were, I mean, it was quite heavy. It was totally fishable at 11 meters, and for what it was, absolutely fine. Another negative, and this is on one of my other Daiwa poles, which we'll get into, was a bit of an annoyance as well. They were quite long top kits. Even though the power kits, they were still quite long. Back then it wasn't puller kits, it was all puller bungs, so okay, that's not a negative just because of the age of the pole. But other than that, it was an all-round solid pole, and I would totally recommend it if someone was starting up or they were trying to get the kids into it. It only really got heavy once you put the very end section on. Other than that, you know, it was pretty decent, to be honest, and an all-round good pole. So moving on from that, I thought, I've got a camera. I didn't really have microphones, I didn't know anything about filming, but we wanted to still film. So the next pole I got were a Preston Active Cap, and that were a 13-meter pole, and it looked lovely. The pros were, it looked lovely, nice with the blue graphics. It came with three top kits, three power kits, a match kit, and a cupping kit, and again a zip bag with tubes in it. So, you know, pretty decent, and you know, it looked great. It had that nice smooth finish. It had the polar liners. Still was on puller bungs because of the age of the pole, but it felt nice, and probably up to about 9 meters it was okay. You know, it was a good pole. But as soon as you sort of stretched it 11, 12 and a half, 13, that kind of range, it did sag a bit, and that moves me onto the cons. It did sag quite a bit at length. It was totally fishable at 11 meters, at 13 meters, but when you struck it was quite bouncy on the return, and it was quite droopy as a pole. But it was around the 450 maybe a little bit less bracket, so you can't really imagine much for a brand new pole at that price, I would say. So I can't really say too much in regards to negative in that regard. Moving on from that, I started the angling info, and when I started that, I thought it was time to get something a little bit better. We got a 1080 HD, a 1080p HD camera. That was a bit of a mouthful, and we'd just got a microphone, so we were starting to up his game and learn a little bit more about what we needed to do good videos. So I thought to myself, although I just had a Preston and I want to impress the price bracket wise, I went for a Protag 360, and that was a 14.5 meter. Now the only downside there is, and it breaks my cardinal rule, and this was the pole that set my rule in place of, if you can at all sit on it, a box, and pick it up, definitely do that before you buy it. And this pole was the reason that came to fruition. Now, some of these poles I've just moved on purely for content and to have more stuff with the channel, and some of them I moved because I just didn't get on with them. Unfortunately, the Protag 360, this is the first generation, the 14.5 meter was one of those poles. So we'll go about the pros first. I do apologise if it comes to top kits and stuff, I can't remember, you know, there's a lot of info in it to remember, but if I remember rightly, it came with a dolly butt, it came with a 4 top kit, power kits, 1 match kit and a cupping kit, and a case and tubes. So for a first positive is they're a decent package. You know, Preston have got a lot of interchangeable parts, they've got a lot of universal pieces and a lot of kits that you can get second-hand, and the second-hand market is strong. Let's just take COVID out of the situation. Generally they are really good for stuff like that, so I thought that's where I needed to be. So that was the first positive of having it. The second, again, got a really nice ship finish, nice and smooth on the latter sections, and easy to deal with in the rain. And then the alignment system, as most poles do, and then the first one that I had was side pullers, which were roller pullers, which roller pullers are great in my opinion. Some people don't like them, I love them, I think they're great. Unfortunately, that's where it sort of ended for me in the positive department. If you were fishing 9 or 10 meters, yeah, it was fine. Anything over that, it was like a banana. If you had a bit of wind, if you were fishing shallow and flicking it over, anything, it was so unresponsive. It was so floppy and droopy. The rebound and things like that were just, it wasn't great, I'll be honest. And the new Protags are definitely better from Preston, but you will say in the comments you get what you pay for, and I certainly did. It were about 650 quid, and yeah, it wasn't great. Other people may get on with it, they may not use the longer sections, so they might be fine, and you probably pick one up for next to no money nowadays, but I just didn't get on with it. So I'm going to consult my list because I have so many poles to look at. So the next one from there on was, I started getting into the videos, got in a lot stronger into the videos, and I got myself a Daiwa Whisker. Now, probably still the best pole for me all round that I've owned. Now, the pro sides are pretty strong on this one. Massive load of kits. I went for the more power option on mine, which gave me 8 top kits, power kits, 1 match kit, and a cupping kit, and then a dolly butt along with the bag and all the tubes. The interelastic kits were great, all with side pullers, and the match kit I had to use a puller bung, but the kit itself was great. The feel in your hand, 11 to 13 meters. I mean, it was a dream at 13 meters, like super responsive, really stiff. Got that nice ship back finish on it, so that was absolutely fantastic. About 1700 quid, so not massively cheap, but you did get what you paid for, and it was a great pole at 13 meters. 14 meters, again, still pretty stiff, still responsive, and at 16 meters, just a bit heavy. It was totally fishable, and it was still very responsive, and didn't sag too much, but it was just a bit heavy if you're having it for a long time. You got a ripple bar or anything like that, you'd be absolutely fine with it. Again, alignment systems, the slip down finish, brilliant. Cupping kits were great. The only real negative for me is that you have to cut back your top kits in regards to putting a bush. They don't come PCFE bushed, and that's a real ball ache for me, especially when you're spending 1700 quid. It just, yeah, it would just a little bit of a faff, that, and getting them all the same size. But if you can get away with that, then you know, it's not end of the world. And if you ever pick it from shop, you can always get them to do it if you're not comfortable with sawing end of your top kits off, and you just discard the number 1 sections. So it's not end of the world. But that were a brilliant pole, and I loved that one. That was absolutely great. It looked great, all stealthed out in black and gold. Yeah, I would definitely have that pole again, and definitely a swaying more towards a Daiwa as the next one. So this is where it gets a little bizarre. So we were going to Florida, and I wanted to free a little bit of cash up for Florida, and I thought it'd be a good time to sell that pole, as it was demanding still good money. I'd had it sort of over a year and a half, and I got about 1100 quid for it, second hand, which, all right, you've lost 600 quid, but you know, it's one of those with poles. So I did that to free a little bit of money for America, and then I bought myself a 101 MAP 2G, 13 meters, and that is a massive downgrade in regards to pole compared to a Whisker. I don't regret doing it, because that was the right thing at that time, and we needed to free up a little bit of capital, and that was the easiest way to do it, plus get something new for the channel. But there were some other reasons behind it that were linked. It was linked to a time that I'm going to put it tactfully, a time that I wanted to get away from in regards to fishing and things that happened in fishing. I wanted to get away from that. That's why I sold my Daiwa tournament box. I sold everything that I had around that time to then start fresh for angling for you, if that makes sense. Some of you guys will understand that. Some of you new ones maybe not so much. But so I did that, and I went to a MAP 101 2G. So complete left field, massive step down, but it was a new chapter away from things of old. And I thought, I don't need 16 meters, so I'll just get an 11 meter. I do this often. I thought I need a 16 meter. I get 16 meter. I don't fish it, then I get a 13, and I swap and change like that. So MAP 101, for the money, about 500 quid, 550, something like that. And again, map kits. I love the side pull. I had some one-piece kits. I had a selection of the normal puller 2-piece kits, cubbing kit, a dolly butt, and then obviously the case. If you look, apart from the first two, all of these are on our playlist and pole reviews, so you can actually go and look at any one of those, what we're talking about today, which is pretty cool considering we're talking about them. So again, I got that, and that were really good, that really responsive for the price bracket. When you compared it against the Preston Protag, it just knocked it out of park. It was a lot more responsive, easy to fish shallow, easy to hold at 13 meters. All right, yeah, we were a little bit heavy because obviously that price bracket, but still totally copeable. And the slip finish, had the aligners, had the nice puller kits, had a lot of pros with it. and I didn't have many cons with it, to be honest. The only thing I felt sometimes when you're on the lower joints, the wall strength did feel a little bit soft, and they have improved that on the 3G series, and that's probably my only con to them, to be honest. Other than that, it were a great little pole to fish with, and I really like the 301, 201 and 101. I totally recommend if you're starting. If you want an all-round, one of the best all-round poles, a 501 3G map is one of the best all-round poles you can get. Totally would recommend that. So I had that one for a little bit, and then I thought let's just up the ante. I've got on that with that really well. I want the 401, and Matt at the same time, he got the 501. He got a really good deal on something like ridiculous, like 700 quid or something. But anyway, Matt got the 501. I got the 401. Both of those are on the channel for you to have a look at. The 401 2G, and again that came with about 5 top kits, a cupping kit, a dolly butt, and the pole itself, and a bag. And pretty much similar to the 101, it was fantastic. Better at 13 meters, obviously more responsive, less bounce, and I got on with it really well. Again, the same plus sides, a good kit, good slip finish, good alignment, pre-bushed. They've got a really good selection of top kits, easy to get all the second-hand parts of top kits. Just really nice all-round pole to fish with. When you got past 13 meters to the foot, because that was a 14.5 meter pole, when you got to 14.5 meters, did have a little bit of weight to it, but still totally fishable. And I'd say that's the only negative at 14.5 meters. They were a little bit more difficult to fish with. The mat poles, to be honest, I've gotten really well with them, and there's not too many negatives when it comes to fishing with those. They had really good short kits for shallow fishing and F1 fishing. They had good power kits, and they had good match kits. All of them with good side pullers. They all came pre-bushed. They all came PTFE top bushed. I really liked that about them all. The kits were always good, and the second-hand prices for kits were a decent price as well. So I can't really say anything negative apart from the fact that obviously a little bit heavy at length, but you get what you pay for price-wise. And again, that wall strength was still through the whole range of the 2G, in my opinion. I mean, there'll be a few people that have got something to say about that, but that's just my experience. But other than that, you know, that was a good solid pole, that 401, as was the 501 that I did of Matt. Right, so the next one on the list is a Shimano Beastmaster. Now this one, I wanted a margin pole, something that I could, you know, throw down the edge and not worry about my main pole too much. And to be honest, 150 quid I got it from Bobco's. I think it came with two top kits, and they'd already got side pullers on, but the number 3 and the number 4 had also got reinforced carbon to drill, because some people used to just use the top 5 of the pole and top 4 of the pole and just elasticate that. It's pretty crazy. I've done a video, actually, it's on there, with Simon Richardson, who lives in Birmingham, and he used to use the number 3 as the top kit of his pole, and he used to use the 3 and the 4 as a top kit and just elasticate that to keep the elastic centralised and no bend in the pole, so he could get these big fish in quickly. It's pretty impressive to watch. It's not my bag, but it's pretty impressive to watch. But again, that came with a nice little sleeve, 2 top kits, slip down finish. The pros for me was it's so versatile. It was only 8.5 meters, but super stiff, super strong, and really could do anything you wanted with it. The only things that the negatives around Beastmasters is when you get the slightly bit longer ones, and they tend to be a little bit heavier, primarily because they're just made so strong to cope with big fish. The big fish poles, and when you do get a carp pole, I'm not saying all of them are super heavy, but generalised, they tend to be a little bit more heavier than the all-rounder poles, because that's what they're aimed at, those big carp and snags and things like that. So that was a really good pole, and I had that for a year or so, and to be honest, sold it for 120 quid, so I only lost 30 quid on it. And I just, again, just a rotation of poles. The next one, these may be in the wrong order, just to let you know. But again, I got rid of the 401 and I'd got rid of the Beastmaster, and I was getting a lot of questions about basic poles and starting up, so I bought a second hand. I got it for 90 quid or something like that, a Drennan Red Range, which is the base model of their gear, and I just got it purely to do a summer short and dark margins. I thought it'd be really good to show that kind of off, where people can see that you'd have to spend a lot of money, and I fished shallow with it, I fished short, I fished long, up to what were it, 8 meters. I could fish it easy to that, and we fished paste on it. And it were a good little tool. You know, the pro side of it, you know, got a couple of top kits with it, which were side pulled, and you got the main pole and a dolly, but slip finish, aligners, pre-bushed, but the negative obviously it's a bit heavier, 8.5 meters, because again it's just thick pole just for down the edge. If you didn't put the end piece on, you know, it will fine to fish shallow and stuff on it, but you don't really tend to get them. If you're gonna fish shallow and you only want a margin pole for length, you're looking at the response, which we'll get onto. So yeah, I had that for a little while and just sold it on for the same money I bought it, really, after sort of six months that summer had gone past. And then I looked for a deal towards the October time of that year, and that moved me on to the ZR2. Now, what I did there is I bought a pole, and I did a piece on buying and selling a second-hand pole, and getting a really good deal, and I got it for about 220 quid, and it was the ZR2 30 meter, and it was an unbelievably good deal for what it was. The guy that had it had tried to get on with it, and he'd not enjoyed pole fishing. He was a carp fisherman, and he just didn't like the pole. Most of it had not even been out of the bag. He'd literally used a few sections and a top kit. Pretty much everything else were unused. So we got a really good price of 220 for it. Went and met up with him and tested it out, and you know, it was absolutely mint. It was exactly how I described. So got that, took it back. So it's that was the more modern version of the SR range that I had the SR1 in. So I was pretty versed in what I'd feel like it'd be like. I knew it'd be similar to the SR1, but slightly better, if that made sense. And they used to do an SR1 Plus, which was a 13 meter version. I remember like green graphics instead of gold. So I got the ZR2 and it was really good. They had the same slip finish, dolly butt, through 3 top kits and a cupping kit and a match kit, a nice zip bag, and it did everything I needed it to do for that season, to be honest. I kept it from that October into the summer, and I caught loads of big carp on it. It just handled really well, even at 30 metres. It wasn't that super heavy, but it wasn't unmanageable at 13 metres. It wasn't too droopy. I fished shallow at 30 metres. If you look at my free line baits and my shallow fishing for big carp, shot on Molly's Pond, which is in the feature films, that's using that at 13 metres, and it was still steady enough to hold a free line bait and things like that. So, you know, it was a good pull for the money. And when I turned it over to sell, I lost no money whatsoever. I think I even gained a £5 on it in selling it. So, you know, that is if it's like a car. Sometimes if you get one at the right time for the right price, you can not lose a lot of money at all. So yeah, the pro side of that, like I said, good package, lovely slip down, pre-bushed, and it was just a joy to fish with. Obviously the negatives are it's still not top flight pole, so it does weigh a little bit at 13 metres, but totally fishable. Certainly absolutely fishable for me. If you went into 14 metres ZR3 territory, I think you might be a little bit heavy, but absolutely perfect. Other than that, I did, and again the top kits, some Daiwas like the Whiskers were okay, but the ZRs and the SRs tend to be a long top kit, and with my old short arms, can be a little bit of a nightmare. But you get used to it and you accommodate it. But that's the only negative really, is that, and it can be a little bit heavy at 13 metres. So moving on from that, we sold that, and then we went for a big boy, and we got the Browning Z8 II. and love that pole. Now I didn't expect to get a Browning. I didn't go thinking of a Browning. I'd got Map in my head, I got Daiwa in my head, and I went and sat with Amarino at Bobco, and I sat on the Browning, and it just, as an all-round well-balanced pole, I thought, yeah, this is, I could see myself fishing with this. And I got 8 top kits with it, power kits, 1 match kit, and a cupping kit, and then I bought 3 additional Map 1-piece shallow kits, which I got from Kel for 90 quid, so that's a bargain. They're normally about 40 quid each, so bargain there. And they fit directly onto the Browning, so that was great. So the pro side of it came with a good package. It was about 1600 quid, so again, not massively cheap, but it came with a good package. They were really solidly made. They wasn't pre-drilled, but Bobco did do that for me, side pullers, and put those on, and that were absolutely fine. The kit itself, everything was in tubes. It had the square butts sections, which I really liked about it, the big positive, and they went into the 16, the 14.5, the 13, and the 11.5, and the 9 metre. So one of them were reversible, and they were really good. And they obviously had the 9 and the 11 metre one was a circle, and then the 13, the 14.5, and the 16 were a square, which were really good to rest your arm on it, so it didn't roll in your arms, especially when you're feeding shallow and things like that. It were a joy and a real positive. They had obviously the alignment systems like most poles, had the lovely smoked out black and red graphics. Really nice, smooth feel of it. A couple of negatives. Obviously, when you got 13 metres, it was a joy. 14 metres, 14.5 metres, it was a joy. 60 metres, a little bit heavy, but nothing unmanageable. What I found about it is it wasn't the lightest pole all round, but it was really well balanced. And if you found that balance point, it were really joy to use, really strong. Although I did have a couple of problems. So the only negatives, apart from a little bit more of a weight, but it's weight over balance. Sometimes that's why you should go and sit and see. For me, was I broke the number 5 section. As soon as I got it, it were rolling on the roller and it just snapped clean in half, literally first day. And I got that replaced. They were great, you know. Amarino were brilliant. Lent me a number 5 section off his margin pole. You know, I can't say anything to Bobco. It's not their fault. That were perfect. So that did break, and I also when I had it and I sold it, the guy I sold it to, he had the same number 5 go and swim off with everything. Luckily later on in the day, it washed up in the shallows, and this guy picked it up and he managed to get it back, and I could get it set because it was still under warranty to get it sorted. But that's 2 number 5 sections, which were a bit of a nightmare. And I broke the 3 number 5s actually, because I broke the number 5. I just struck a fish and it snapped clean in half. It's not a common problem. I don't know why. I wasn't overzealous with it. I wasn't, you know, over the top. But that same section broke 3 times, which is just a bit weird. So I don't know if that's something to do with the Z82. I've looked around, can't see any more information on it, but that was the only negative for me, that one section. And that's just one of them things. I don't know. I haven't seen it anywhere else, but that was the only real positive, that and the weight. But the weight for me wasn't that bad because of the balance, so that overweighed it. But it's still a great pole, and I really enjoyed having it. And the guy that I've got the number 5 back for us, had no other problems for over a year, so you know, hopefully that's sorted. So I sold that then, and we went into lockdown. I sold that in the first lockdown, and like everybody else, worried about your job, worried about furlough, didn't know what to expect. So I thought I'd rather have that money sat in my bank, and you know, it's better safe. So at that moment in time, I found out my job was safe, what the furlough was going to be, and things seemed to go, I want to say back to normal. Nothing's normal at the moment, but we were allowed out fishing. So I thought, what I'll do is I'll get myself a margin pole. So I went with a Preston Response margin, and that was a beautiful bit of kit. Really well balanced, super light, super responsive, super strong, and really nice smooth finish. Got the roller power kits, got, you know, the cupping kit, nice case, dolly butt, everything you want. To be honest, as a pole and as a margin pole, I can't really fault that. I have got no cons for it. There were kits were perfect size, super strong, graphics look great, super feel. Good, came with good kit, easy to get spares for, easy to get second-hand stuff. You know, I could not fault that. So after getting rid of that, purely on, well, I had that, and then I had the Monster, Edge Monster, because a lot of people were talking about the Edge Monster. So I thought, why not buy the Edge Monster at the same time? So I bought that. I said to my friend before I bought it, I'm going to buy this. You were on about a margin pole, because here's the Sensors pole. Do you want this off me for the price I'm going to pay, but I just need to review it? He says, yeah, absolutely. So I bought it, and I fished with it a couple of times, and then I sold it back to my friend. So having used the Monster, now you can get the 8.5, I got the 10 meter one, and again, really good. I've got some comparisons on there. You can go and have a look. They're a different animal. It's a cheaper price, so I think they're about 180 quid. The difference for me is that the longer sections, it's still very strong. It's still got nice slip movement. Still got the roller pullers. Definitely got the strength, and still got the aligners and a good kit. The positives are really good for it, and that's why they sold so many of them. The only negatives are it's a little bit more floppy than obviously the Response, but not by much. And what you're using it for, you're not going to be shallow fishing with it most of the time or out like that. It's going to be short pace, hard pellet and down edge, and that's what it's made for. So the only cons, like I say, would be it's not as stiff and it's a little bit heavier, and the kits are longer, but if you're a taller guy, no problems there. But for me, obviously, I'm short. But other than that, you know, all round great pole, great for the money. Can't argue with for the money. Does everything that you need it to do, and totally fishable at full length as well. I'm not saying it's a banana by any stretch of the imagination, it's not. And you can get the shorter kits as well for it. So once I sold both of those, obviously one to my friend and then the Response as well, vacated, and then that leaves me almost up to date, and I moved on to the UK Gabolino UK5 carp match pole, and that was a lovely pole. As soon as I picked that up, I just thought that this is a great solid pole, and that's a 13 meter pole, and again that came with a good package. That were five power kits, a cupping kit, and there were 2 margin kits, 3 power kits, 1 match kit and a cupping kit, and it had a dolly butt again, and all in tubes, and a nice case. It's just a great, I mean, Garbos are made proper, you know, lots of strength in it, lots of backbone in it. And again, I didn't get it for its lightness. I wanted to try a carp pole out, so I went down that carp pole route. And yes, it was a little bit heavier than other things, but it wasn't an all-rounder. It was aimed at being a carp pole. And seeing as I fished mainly for F1s and carp, that's why I went with that. And again, it was a lovely pole to fish with. I loved the shallow short kits for the margins, the Ghost ones. They were great, really strong. They all came pre-bush, Gabolino side pullers in there, looked great, smoked out graphics, and with the orange, really nice pole to use. Again, the dolly butt reversible in the 13 and the 11 meter, which were a positive. The finish was a lovely slip down finish, and again, everything were pre-bushed. So lots of positives. Again, the only negative I really have is that it may be just a little bit heavier than normal, and that's really the only negative I had there really with it. So yeah, that brings me up to date. No pole at the moment. We don't know what we're going to get yet, but keep tuned for that, and hopefully you've enjoyed this, and there's a few more like this coming, so definitely keep your eye out for that, and keep yourself safe. Join us on the Instagram at angling_for you, and on the Facebook at for you. And until the next one, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Tight lines.